Welcome, everyone, and more that will be joining us in just a few minutes. The work is still continuing in the kitchen for a few more minutes. The last of the tables and the chairs are being whisked away to the storage room, and many hands have made lighter work, but some of the hands are still doing the heavy lifting, so they'll be trickling in and joining in just a few minutes. But just a couple of things to begin with. If you did not get a chance to pick up the packet, there are still a few more out on the table, or Seth has a handful. So if you want to raise your hand, Seth can deliver one to you. As a few people join us, they might need one also. If you see someone come in and sit next to you and they don't have one in, maybe you can get their attention or get Seth's attention and he'll hand one to them. I was struck this morning with the whole service. Parts of it really spoke to me personally. I was really taking a look at that phrase, the church body, or the body of Christ. And as we take a look at all of the small pieces and parts that are required to make an organization or a group or a congregation operate and run and work, so many people sharing their talents and time, their ideas and their energy, their work, their efforts, both big and small, both seen and unseen. I was just really taken back about how many things happen in front of our eyes, but also behind the scenes. And I just wanted to say thanks. Thanks to those, thanks to you, and spread that thanks to others as we call this Spring Council meeting to order. We're going to begin with an opening prayer. Paul will join us for that. I think you'll see the rest that lies before us. Thank you.
So for today's prayer, I actually got it from the back of the bulletin, which is kind of nice. So let's go ahead and let's pray. Gracious God, as we gather here and online today, we seek your presence and guidance. May God bless this council meeting. May all that we speak and all that decisions we make reflect Christ's love and peace. As Ralph McCoy beautifully put it, knowing God, let us not stray from your wise path. Righteous God, let us not stray from your vision and justice. Loving God, let us not stray from your course of mercy. Faithful God, let us not stray from your loving kindness. As we seek you with all our soul, let us delight in all your ways and hold them in our depths. Amen.
Thank you, Paul. Those were wonderful words. The first item on our agenda is the approval of the agenda. So if you would like to look through that, see if there's anything that brings to mind something of discussion. And if there isn't anything else to add, we do have Mel with a microphone during the whole course of this meeting. If you want to share something or add something or discuss something, just wave your hand and Mel will be right there with the microphone to make sure everybody can hear your question. So we will ask for a motion for the approval of the agenda today. Mel Sauter, and a second. Dean Beery, thank you. Dean, I tell people my biggest worry is not standing at a microphone speaking, it's drawing that blank, Dean, that I drew right there, and thank you. And next, the approval of the minutes for the October 15th, 2023 council meeting. You'll see those minutes listed. Oh, sorry, thank you, ahead of myself. And a vote. All of those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, say nay. Thank you. And next, moving on to so that the approval agenda passes. And next, moving on to the approval of the minutes for the October 15th council meeting. You'll see that on the first page inside. A couple more continue on. If you picked up your packet ahead of time, you had a chance to look through that. give you just a minute to see if there's anything that jumps out needing to be changed. Yes. Treasurer's report. Ratio, not ration, yes, our ratio. So it's got an extra N, strike the N. Great catch. Anything else from the fall council meeting minutes? Okay, take a motion to approve. Tina Raymond moves that we approve the minutes from the October 15th, 2023 council meeting. Do we have a second? Lots of seconds. Let's take Bud Tolley. Great. Bud Tolley, a second. And now, all of those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. Okay, that carries. Now that moves us to our one bigger item before we get into some reports and updates. The Code of Ethics review. Bob's going to join us here, and he's going to share a little bit of information about the Code of Ethics review, and then we'll bring that question before you. So, let's have a bit of an update on this.
As a part of the congregational profile we prepare as a part of the pastoral search, we are asked to affirm that we have committed ourselves to the Congregational Code of Ethics, which applies throughout the denomination. I think it was about 1996 that the annual conference adopted this Code of Ethics, and it is a little over 5 years since our congregation has looked at it and affirmed our commitment to it. So that's why we're doing that today. It's really about right relationships. Integrity, and that would be relationships within the congregation and how we treat each other, how we deal with differences, how we act as a body. It would be relationships with other parts of the Church of the Brethren throughout the denomination and other religious bodies anywhere in the world. But it also is ethical expectations of us as employers. Employing a staff. There are ways that we need to commit to treating the staff of the congregation, as well as just expectations, financial, legal expectations that we take on as employers. And then the third area would just be as an entity in the community. We're an organization, you could say, in some aspects, a business. And there are ethical considerations about how we conduct ourselves as an entity in the community. And so we commit to those, and it's in your packet, the specifics of exactly what those expectations are, but that summarizes the nature of the commitments we make there.
So it is good to review occasionally, especially before this search for a new pastor, that we are doing what we say we're doing. And so, again, if you have not had a chance to preview the Code of Ethics, as Bob said, you'll find it just past the minutes, front and back. We bring this to a chance for us to have, I guess, any questions, anything that comes out right now. We're going to go for a motion in a second, but before we get that motion in a second, is there anything that people want to discuss or? Yes, Rachel.
Well, I have I don't know for sure at what point this comes, but I have a question under number 1, right at the very beginning, that that in the past, I think we've often had printed when we have extra music put in the bulletin. I know that we have some sort of copyright permission for using songs from other sources, but it seems like it's been a long time since we actually print that information. And maybe it's just my own curiosity, but I often wonder where those songs are coming from. Is it the New Mennonite Hymnal? Where are they coming from? And so I feel like that's a place that it seems to me we're not following congregational ethics at this point. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if this is the right time to bring that up or not, but I wanted to make sure and ask the question about it.
Well, there might be someone sitting here with us knowing more than me that could answer that question regarding music, giving permission, credits. Is there anyone that I know David would know an awful lot more about that. Yes, Debbie. Okay, so Debbie says she believes we have a license to do that. It's just not printed every time in the bulletin. My assumption is that we probably have thought of that, and it's probably written, discussed in the musical circles or the circles using other writings.
Joel?
Seth? Yes.
Yeah, Joel. Yeah, I'll just mention we pay a yearly subscription through one license for copyright permission for most of the songs that we use. There are some out of the Mennonite hymnal that, I don't know if Gwen would know more about that exactly, how that use is acquired, although most of them are under that umbrella, and that's posted with the live stream, but perhaps in the bulletin could be something that, I don't think we put that one license information in the bulletin, so.
Another question up here. That was a good question. It's always important to wonder about those. Yes.
Hi, just as a follow-up on that, I'm wondering, when we have all those inserts, we take them home, and then are we responsible just to keep them home? I mean, can we gather them up and use them somewhere else, or not?
Not being a copyright lawyer myself, I do know from the school aspect of things, from things that I use in a school setting, there's a little bit of a difference between personal use and also use for sales or use for example, if I would post something that someone would buy off of the internet or website that I prepared as a teacher, I need to make sure I'm giving credit where that's due. But if I'm just using it for personal use, a lot of those things, to allow you to read it again, or allow to, share it with somebody else, I think that there's a little difference in that. Does anybody else have a better understanding and ruling of how, when there's something, if the question was an insert in the bulletin that might have something that somebody's written, or music, or song, what do we do with that afterwards? Yes. Thank you. Is that a bit better? Thanks. That's better on my neck, too. Julie.
Joel, I think often the items are in the bulletin. I think this morning there was a song without any attribution. So even though you're using it by license, it probably should say who the composer is and the arranger or whatever. And in terms of taking something home, you probably wouldn't want to use it in your annual Christmas card or something like that where you'd be redistributing it. That's another opportunity for a composer or arranger to be compensated for their work. So I would consider it a one-time use. You can take it home and keep it in a scrapbook or look at it occasionally. That should probably be its own license.
I think it depends a little bit on the audience. If you're playing your piano at home from that song, for your own personal use after church. I think that's going to be viewed a bit differently than if you're traveling to a friend's church and then you're going to play that and the next Sunday at their church. Would I be correct in that? Okay. All good questions. And maybe those who circle with those who are on musical committees and musical and choirs, just to keep that fresh as people cycle in and out of those roles, so we know that. Anything else? Yes, Lila.
And I'll just say, because we are live streaming, this is a really critical issue because there are, I don't know what you call it, but there are ways for organizations or whatever to search YouTubes and to see if music is being copyrighted appropriately. So we do want to be careful with that.
Yes. Once we broadcast, we reach a much broader audience, a wider audience, which is a wonderful thing, but also a thing of responsibility for us. And there is, along with a code of ethics, there's also everybody in this world has their own code of ethics we hope they're living by, that they're not taking something that we're doing within good faith and then using it in ways that are not intended by us also. You're not always able to control the outcomes of other people's actions, and that is unfortunate sometimes. One thing that jumped out at me as you finished, go ahead, yes. Yeah.
Just a point of clarification, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the agenda refers to the ethics paper as section 6, but the paper itself says section 4. Is that correct?
It very well mean that I made it, yep, and that would be my mistake. It should be IV, not VI, and I apologize for that. That is section 4. So good correction. We will make that correction. We probably should have done that on approval of our agenda. I think we can still go back and make that change. I can definitely make it on my document. That should be, so if you're looking at the agenda, it says section 6, it should have been section 4. Good catch on that. Thank you. My I before V's and not after C's. One thing I'll mention personally, and Jan, I'll get to you in a second, is I even noticed on here, Kurt Borgman will be conducting my daughter's wedding, but that was agreed upon before he left as an employee of the church, and he had made that commitment to Carly and Matthew to do that. But as I read through that, I thought, oh no, am I in violation of our code of ethics for having that happen? But I think that is in decisions made moving forward, and that has all been explained with the pastors and the pastors on staff for some of those things that were already agreed upon prior to that. Yes, Jan.
I have a question on number 4 about avoiding dual relationships. I understand what that is in the case of a professional and a client, or of a pastor and members of the congregation. I don't quite understand in the context of the congregation what a dual relationship means.
So into question is on the front page of the Code of Ethics, number 4, where it says, our integrity also challenges us to work in a transparent manner to the extent that we avoid dual relationships or conflicts of interest. Clarification on what that means. That's a very good question. I don't have an exact answer. We all know what conflicts of interest are. I suppose it could be in taking a look at relationships that people hold, maybe not just within our church body, but perhaps within our church and the community. I don't know if there are relationships that could be held by someone that would maybe be in the wider part of the church. For example, if you were the moderator for the whole denomination and you also were within this church in some role. Does anybody else have clarifications on the word dual relationships?
I think part of your answer to that question is in number 5.
Agreed. That probably does have some clarification in there. Anyone else? So in our age when we don't know, what do? Okay. Miss Google says this. Dual relationships, also known as multiple relationships, refer to a situation in which multiple roles exist between a therapist and a client. For example, when a client is also a friend or family member, it is considered a dual relationship. So I think maybe that terminology could be considered in multiple aspects within a church body, both congregationally and personally, both as a role of someone who might work here and attend here, both in someone who's on a committee. I think there's a lot of situations where perhaps they want to ask us to work in a transparent manner. I think that's being open and careful with communications. Bob?
Taking what Amy found and applying it here, I think it is more likely going, think of all the different relationships we have within this congregation and the ways we help, the way we serve each other, and the roles to which we've been called. But I think that if the church is awarding a contract to repave the parking lot, and it goes to someone who is the nephew of a member of the body making the decision, then that wouldn't be a dual relationship. It wouldn't be wrong if it was an open bid process and that was a transparent relationship.
Yes.
But that might be an example.
Mm-hmm.
I think that where a dual relationship would be inappropriate.
I would think contractually or business-wise, that maybe is probably the most often way I could think of. I was thinking of that like with our solar project that we had. If someone did have connections or relatives or anything that would be construed as being a conflict of interest in that. Yes, Paul.
Going back to the dual relationship, who's going to police this? Is it the executive board who's going to say, okay,
I think that's true with all of this code of ethics. As you read through that, I think we're here as a body together to hold each other accountable, to hold each other in conversation about those. And so I think that's a little bit like how a family interacts in some ways, that you check and balance each other through that relationship that you have with each other. That we do have some groups within our church that perhaps could address issues should they become, executive board would be one of those. I suppose if something became a bigger challenge or a bigger issue. Lila, speaking of executive board, I suppose they could be called into a conversation or action over something.
Certainly, I think the board and also the moderator and the assistant moderator would be involved in those, depending on the level of the discussion and what the conflict is. In the example that Bob gave, I could see that would come to the board from the property commission, and if the board felt that there was not an open bidding opportunity and that there was some favoritism being played, I think then the board could get involved. So it kind of depends on what the situation is, I think.
So maybe me as a moderator or Bob as assistant moderator might be the first action where we would be in conversation and have that discussion, have that mediation, so to speak, over that conflict of interest. And then from there, I suppose the executive board could be involved in something need be. Anyone else to add to that? Yes, Jan. Jan, right up here, Jan Rhodes. We have a couple Jans in the audience, I think.
I I keep coming at this from a professional code of ethics, the social work code of ethics. There's something that I don't find here at all, and that's about confidentiality.
Confidentiality, you said?
Yes, we're talking pastors, we're talking deacons. There are so many places where confidential information is shared, and one of the commitments that we have to have is that we don't share that with everybody else.
Yes.
And to me, it seems to be missing here.
It seems to be missing?
Missing. I don't find confidentiality here.
So the word confidentiality, you feel, is missing in that. I think as far as the pastors go, I think some of that might be expected in their code of ethics as pastors. Yeah, the confidentiality, yes.
Which that is a separate, there are ministerial ethics that are
Which
separate
is separate from this. Yes.
I just wanted to add that ideally it feels like this is something, not that we would go about policing one another, but within the context of the denomination, that congregations ideally could be holding each other accountable, and so it's within our congregation, but it's also it partly relates to our relationship with the denomination as a congregation, and I don't know how that all fits in, but I think it's a broader scope than just how we operate within ourselves. Well, right, and the district, how the district plays into that as well. It seems like that's a place, is there a separate district code of ethics, or there's right, oh yes, so the district has an ethics committee that is responsible, and you in that committee, and Julie's on that committee, and that could be in the case of a breach of ministerial code of ethics, but also congregational, right? That could be brought to your committee. Yes.
So in case you didn't catch all of that discussion, it sounded like when Julie shared with within the district, there are a separate code of ethics in which things might apply given certain circumstances or questions. And might I add too, this reminds me just a bit do you remember Olden Mitchell and all of his great insights within the Brethren heritage and Brethren history within this church? When he took me through my membership course many years ago, he talked about how churches would not hold a love feast until all was right within the church, until they had conversations and they were in right relationships. So they sometimes would delay love feast at certain times and meetings until conversations and challenges to certain topics might have been addressed, or at least had a chance to be worked out. I found that an interesting part of Brethren history. So it does seem to me very fitting that we would have a wonderful set of code of ethics and try to live up to those and into those. Not to say that we're going to be perfect within those all the time, but we do need to hold each other accountable or remind each other, just as you would with anybody else in right relationship, so that you are reminding each other to pick your dirty clothes up off the floor and put them in the laundry basket, or maybe something a little deeper and more heavy. Yes?
I just wanted to mention that in this page, we're looking only at the fourth part, the Code of Ethics, but the polity includes under number 2, the congregation and its relationships. And again, thanks to Wi-Fi in the church right now, I looked it up, and under that congregational and its relationships, there is the sentence, the congregation shall provide an environment where personal tensions and difficulties can be shared in full confidence of trust, loving response, and confidentiality. And then goes on from there. But just to say that this is not the complete part. We're only reviewing a portion of the total ethics polity.
So Amy Broombaugh-Smith with the great thought of we're seeing a subsection of the wider code of ethics which if you'd like some bedside reading, I'm sure you can print it off, but it is available on the church website, correct? Denominational website? Denominational website to read if you would like 1, 2, and 3 to go along with 4, not 6, to read the rest of that. I think in its entirety it does encompass a bit more. And when Lila first passed this on to Bob and myself, I did read through that, skimming a little more, those other sections that we weren't focusing on, but it's a pretty comprehensive list of things that are in that. It might be good to revisit that if you have not read that for a while. More questions? And again, if you're just tuning in or you're just joining us from the Help in the Kitchen, we're taking a look at the Congregational Ethics Review. It is on section 4, pages 13 through 15, so this is just a subsection. Taking a look before we go through the pastoral search, that we have revisited this, that we're being fresh with, that we are following what we say we're doing. Yes?
I'm Marilyn Groves. Not all of you know me, so that's why I mentioned
Thank you,
my
Marilyn.
name. There are 2 paragraphs that concern me. One is on the second column on the first page, the second number 2, that says, "We are a people of reconciliation and seek to resolve disputes or concerns through peaceful means rather than resorting to public courts for a resolution." There could be assaults, rapes, murders within churches that maybe we should call, I mean, these are crimes for which we have laws and we're subject to the government. I would like to see the denomination take another look at that, unless it's already in another part of it. Then on the second page, first column, number 4, we endeavor to maintain an environment and program free of sexual, psychological, physical abuse and harassment, giving special attention to the protection of children, the elderly, and disabled. I think women should be included in that sentence. And then, okay, I lost my place. In the event of an accusation of abuse or harassment, we will deal with it forthrightly, promptly, and fairly in order to stop the behavior in question, minister to all victims, effect change in the violator, and seek reconciliation. Are our ministers trained to stop repetition in that kind of behavior? Or does it take a special counselor and special extensive work to get someone who is abusive to their wife to change that? I don't think that probably going through Bethany Seminary prepares you for something that sick, if you don't mind my using that word. In light of the book, Her Words and My Voice, we have had rapes in the denomination that went to the very highest level of the denomination to try to get that resolved, and it was not resolved. I'd like to see the denomination take a new look at this issue.
More discussion or more question? Yes.
Pastors are mandatory reporters. So, you know, when something comes, you're obliged to report it to the police. You can't just say, oh, we'll sweep this under the rug, we'll do this, we'll do that. No. It happens all the time, but it shouldn't because we're mandatory reporters.
So that let's just unpack a little bit right there. So Marilyn had 2 thoughts. Marilyn's thought on the first page And I'm not an expert on this, and I didn't write this enough to know. I kind of wonder whether your first question, Marilyn, which was a very good one, does it maybe center on the word seek as opposed to required? I mean, like you're not allowed to do the other? In other words, that's our first choice, to do that over going to the public courts. I don't think it prevents going to the courts in that statement to me. But in other words, that's maybe more of the brethren way, is to seek to resolve the disputes that way. That's my best attempt at wondering what the writers of this might have said.
Going to the courts in this context has usually meant lawsuits. It hasn't meant anything that involves a criminal offense.
So more of a liability or someone accusing someone within a lawsuit of that, okay? And then the second question that Marilyn addressed was of many more serious things in which we do see that that discrimination or the evils of the world coming out in different ways and adding. We all know that the sexism that occurs in our world is very real. I hear that discussed in many of the circles that I work in and live in. It seems to me like that would fit within what is a reality out there in our world of having things happen. As far as adding words or editing, I have to have some assistance from someone to see how we go about adding a word into that. I do agree, as we talked about, Nan just mentioned that I know as a school teacher, and I'm assuming as a pastor too, if something is brought to you or shared to you, for example, for me it would be child abuse, I am required by law, and I'm pretty sure the pastors would be required if there is something that would be a criminal offense like that, you are required, you as a professional, to report that to the people that could address that and handle that. So I need to make a call to make sure that I'm reporting that child abuse. And so that's on me. I may not be trained how to handle that all myself, you're right. I may not have quite the skill sets to be able to address all of those issues. And I'm assuming as pastors, there could be some things that are beyond what you are either comfortable with covering or things that would be needing to be in other circles. Pastors, any more to add to that?
But pastors, camp directors, Sunday school teachers, as you said, are required by law to report, but also you're given the tools to know who to report it to and who can be the resources. You know, it's not on your shoulders to be the person to do that, but to know where the resources are. And that's the key.
Does that help clarify that a little bit, Marilyn, or is there more conversation we should have? Because I think the conversation is very good to have on that. What do we do with as far as adding a word to this? Rachel?
Well, it's not our paper, so
Yeah.
we can't do anything in terms of that. But I think for those of us who were at annual conference this summer, the Mission and Ministry Board did make, I can't think of the right word, but they had a response to the publication of Heidi's book that they indicated that they would be looking at that further in responding to it. And I think it would be very appropriate to address communications to people on the Mission and Ministry Board or staff to just express that concern. But it isn't our paper to, we could make, we could say, yes, we agree with this and we think it should go a little further, but we can't change it, so.
One thing I'm struck with is a code of ethics is a piece of paper that's often buried deep within people's reading. Conversations like we're having now and need to be revisited every so often. Books that are written, side conversations or Sunday school topics are where those important topics of the day are really important to keep on the forefront of our awareness. So in Marilyn's question and other conversations, I think that's, even though we can't put the word women or female in this. I think us continuing that conversation and having that dialogue is probably almost even more important in at least moving the immediate needle within us than being able to add a word that, unless we get people to read, may not have action. Yes, Jan. Jan Rhodes.
Back to you.
I guess this all raises for me the question, why did we select this part for our congregation to adopt when Amy is reading a much more extensive code of ethics that's been developed by the church? I don't know how was this piece selected for ours?
I think some of this, it's coming out of our job search. When we are looking for a pastor, we have to submit things, correct, to the district. We're basically doing we look in the mirror. We're looking in the mirror who we are, and we do a congregational profile, and we are submitting. We did this for every congregational hiring that we've done, but it's been a few years since we've reviewed this, and so we wanted to make sure that we brought it back for a more frequent review, and though this section maybe pertain to a few more things dealing with the pastors. Yes, Lila.
Bob and I are pointing at each other, yeah. The congregational profile, which is the document that we are required to submit whenever we do a pastoral search, goes into the denominational system for other people, the persons who are looking for a pastor position, to look at us. Part of that profile is, there's a very specific sentence that asks, has the congregation reviewed number 4, the Code of Ethics? If so, when and in what format? So it was done in January of 2018, and it was an all-church Sunday school class that we did at that point. And so because it's been more than 5 years, you should really do it every 5 years or when you submit a new profile. And since it's been more than 5 years, we are required then to review this specific section. Yes, this specific section of the Code of Ethics. I mean, it's the instruction that we receive, and then affirm that we are agree to abide by that Code of Ethics. So none of us here chose which portion of the Code of Ethics of the polity that we would review. That may take another special Sunday school class or another special council meeting if we want to review the entire thing, which is fine. It is available online on the denominational website, but we are asked to review this number 4 Code of Ethics specifically for the congregational profile, which is part of the pastoral search.
I think that helps explain why it's before us now. We thought about, you could call a separate meeting for this, but we were just weeks away from doing the spring council meeting anyway, without a lot of other big meaty things on the agenda. So we thought, why not add something that might provide a stimulating discussion like this? Yes, Gwen.
I am probably the least qualified in this room to speak to the question of how do you get something like the whole of the document changed, but I heard somewhere that there's something like people can take a query to the next level, and it would seem appropriate given the fact that her words and my voice has come out in recently and brought some things to light, that it might be appropriate that this year, I mean, I don't know how this works, but that a query be taken to the next level to include women in that statement.
Good. All that heard Gwen, give me an eye. Yeah, and I think that's maybe what the good out of this conversation comes is maybe we keep moving the needle. This congregation has been moving the needle on different topics, and I think we need to continue to do that. Okay. So the question before us is, does the congregation agree to, quote, reaffirm the Code of Ethics referred to in the Congregational Ethics paper? If so, we'll need a motion, then we'll need a second. Any final? So moved. There we go. We got a movement, and we've got. let's go ahead. Let's get both our movement and our second from the back here. Max Mock was the second. I know we had a couple hands for the second.
Fred Orr was the first.
A vote. All of those in favor of reaffirming, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Let's make that an opportunity that happens. Thank you. The motion carries. All right, next, moving on our agenda item, we have the treasurer's report. Catherine, thank you.
You have in the packet before you the financial report for the year ended December 31st, 2023. The numbers in the middle of the page are 2023. The numbers to the far right are comparison from the prior year, 2022. So our cash availability across Bippas Straight Bank was $127,000. Crossroads Bank was $37,000. The Sing Me Home Festival had a little over $10,000 with petty cash of $200. And at the Brethren Foundation Funds, or Ader Financial, I need to get that name updated, is $477,800. So we had total cash and marketable securities of $652,484. We had accounts payable at year end of just over $19,000. Our notes payable, which were taken out for the solar panel project, is down to $18,000. We have one final payment happening this July. And then our temporarily restricted funds that we hold are $433,722. So that left us with available cash of $181,671 at the end of December. We calculate a cash reserve ratio of how long that would let us pay our regular bills, and it was 2.94 months. Our goal is 3, so we were really close. Moving down, you'll see that the budget for 2023 that was passed was $740,760. We collected unrestricted contributions of $635,000. That was about 85.7% of budget. Our actual expenses from budget lines were $714,400. That was 96% of the budget that we passed. We typically do not spend quite as much as we've budgeted throughout the year. And our contributions as a percentage of our total expenses that year were 88.9%. So our expenses exceeded contributions by $79,363, but we have other income. Predominantly, this came from market gains from our investment. $64,000 of the $76,169 there was from our market gains. And then also things like facility rentals, preschool income, and some other miscellaneous income runs through that line. So we ended the year with a net loss of $3,194. Moving down the page, you can also see the actual and budget comparison by commission. Those breakdowns there for you so you can see how things were spent throughout the year. Our executive budget was slightly over by $4,000, but everyone else was under budget, predominantly property commission. The way that we budget in the past, that predominantly came from our savings of utilities because we have the solar panels. So again, our total expenses for the year were $714,400 compared to a budget of $740,760. Another piece we like to call out are all the special offerings that we collected through the year. So we have the quarterly offerings to the Church of the Brethren, 1 great hour of sharing. The Manchester Church of the Brethren Immigrant Ministry was our second quarter offering. That brought in almost $9,000. Heifer International was third quarter of $4,500. And then in December, we do the Advent offering to the Church of the Brethren of $2,740. And then we also collected a special offering Christmas Eve for the Palestinian Children Relief Fund of just over $5,000. So in addition to our unrestricted giving, we had over $25,000 collected in designated offerings. On the back side of this page, you'll also see the details for our designated funds, our temporarily restricted funds, things that we're holding. And Just a note on the capital expenditures. For example, you'll see that transfer in of $24,000. We made the decision to transfer our savings from our utilities, things that we weren't spending to pay the electric bill, into that capital expenditures fund. It's right now being used to help us pay those loan payments, and then once that's done, it's there to help us pay for the building, potentially. I don't have anything specific to call out through this too much. The last line you will see is the festival fund, the Sing Me Home Festival, and so you can see the transaction totals that ran through there, and that at the end of the year it had almost $12,000. There were still some, there's a little bit cleaning up at the beginning of the year, but that's where the festival fund is at. Does anyone have any questions? Great, thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Next, Executive Board report, Lila.
Greetings and blessings to all of you. I am humbled and honored to chair the Executive Board, along with the commission chairs, the pastors, the treasurer, the moderator, the assistant moderator, and the clerk. According to our bylaws, which I recommend as highly engaging reading, the Executive Board shall be vested with administrative powers to plan, coordinate, integrate, and supervise the ongoing program of the congregation. The bylaws go on to list 19 duties of the board. Now, knowing that the effects of that wonderful fellowship meal are kicking in about this time of day, I will not read those to you. You can read that. If you're interested, I can get you a copy of the bylaws. But I will tell you that the people serving on the executive board take their call very seriously and are dedicated to this body of believers and the ministries of this congregation. In the packet, you have the executive board report, including reports from each of the commission chairs, which gives you a synopsis of the work of the board over the past few months. But rather than rehash what is included in the written reports, I want to give you a glimpse into what the board will be working on in the next few months. Like all homes, our home is beginning to show its age. At our home, we were convinced that our appliances talked behind our backs. The range asked the dishwasher, "How long are you sticking around?" The microwave said to the washer, "If you leave, I'm out of here." The refrigerator said, "I'm not sure how long I'll be able to hang on." And in a matter of weeks, we replaced 4 appliances. We're beginning to experience some of these same situations here in our church home, which is nearly 25 years old. The Property Commission is working to inventory and prioritize repairs and replacements we know will be coming along. This summer, as been mentioned before, we will be retiring the debt on our solar panels, which will allow us to funnel more funds into capital expenditures. This process of home maintenance review, of course, is closely tied to our financial health. The Stewardship Commission is going through a process of reviewing our policies and procedures related to spending, budgeting, and investments so that we are not ever taken by surprise financially. The Fellowship Commission continues to brainstorm ways to connect us with each other, and the Witness Commission seeks opportunities to connect us to our brothers and sisters outside of this church family. If you have ideas, please share those with the commission chairs. The Education Commission is investigating ways to maintain an active and meaningful Sunday school program for all ages. And the Nurture Commission is working to involve more people in the volunteer pool, hint, that's all of us here, to help with the myriad of opportunities to serve our brothers and sisters right here in this church family, from worship and decor to preparing and delivering meals when needs arise. As we've experienced changes to our staffing through the past year, the Pastoral Ministry and Personnel Commission continues to review and update position descriptions and track task lists to ensure that all the hundreds of details, necessary details for operating our church organization are being attended to. In addition to these ongoing responsibilities and activities, the executive board will become involved in the pastoral search process when the search committee completes its work. Yes, we have busy months ahead, and I ask that you keep us in your prayers. Contact me or any commission chair if you have ideas to share or questions to ask. And I welcome your questions at this time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lila. Thank you, Julie, for leading us up to the change of the year, and a seamless handover to Lila. Like they've been a relay team for years on the same track team. Wow. Great job, ladies, in doing that. It's been wonderful to see that happen. All right, next up, we have the Pastoral Search Committee report. Jim Shively, come on down. You're the next leader in Find a Pastor. You're supposed to run down with your hands all waving in excitement. He's pacing himself for the long search. Maybe not that long.
Well, Joel, I'm supposed to be the funny one. Well, you are blessed because I practiced this speech on the Timbercrest crowd, and they loved it. So with my improvements, you should be right on base. I will try and be brief and to the point, but I got nothing else to do this afternoon. And I'll take all the questions that you have. You cannot interrupt me because I have a list. On February 10th, following an exercise with the district minister identifying the characteristics to look for in a search committee of between 5 and 10 members, the executive board created an ad hoc search committee of 9 members. And I think it's only fair to tell you what the characteristics were that they were looking for. The district guidelines indicated that we should include those persons who are sensitive to the needs and concerns of subgroups within the congregation, have informal authority and board trust within the broad trust within the congregation, and be able to discern together and keep close confidences. The board then added the following qualities. Individuals should be teachable, and in brackets they included, have the humility to know that they have things to learn. They should be self-confident, and in brackets they said, to be okay with what they do not know. They should be non-anxious in the midst of transition. That may have been what got me inside, I don't know. They need to be able to express confidence and a sense of God's leading and to be cognizant of God being in control of the process. Need to be able to express themselves in front of the committee without reservation, and persons who are trusted by the congregation to have its best interest in their minds as they move forward. So based on those criteria, the following people were asked and accepted this responsibility. Debbie Chinworth, Lila Hammer representing the church board, Sam Hupp, John Hartsaw, Nathan Souter, Kristen Short, myself, and as ex officio members, Amy Gall-Ritchie and Seth Hendricks. The initial task is to work with the district minister to organize our committee and to initiate the search process through the denomination and the district. We do not go out looking for people on our own, but there's a very structured process that we continue to follow. The work of the committee begins with the congregational profile that's been talked about in a couple of different areas. We have been doing that with reviewing various church documents and preparing the survey that was announced this morning, and we trust that all of you and all of your friends will complete. The more input we can get there, the stronger our process is going to be. Once the profile is completed, that will be forwarded to the district minister. We expect that to happen by April 15th. The next step in the process is that the committee will identify candidates that seem to be a good fit, and we will receive those candidates via the district minister. But we also can work through the district minister looking out for other people, and we're not at all opposed. In fact, we would encourage any of you to submit names. Don't want to put any pressure on you, but the Timbercrest folks came up with 3. So, just saying. We expect that process to be completed during the month of May as we try to identify prospective candidates. The next step then would be to select candidates for interviews via either telephone or Zoom. And at that point, we can identify several people that we wish to have further conversation with. We then move to a process of selecting a candidate to focus on, and we hope to have that process completed sometime during the month of June. That would involve then some additional interviews and contacts with that person and references, etc. And once the committee has identified someone that they believe would be a good fit, that recommendation is forwarded to the executive board. The executive board then reviews the material. We hope that that might happen sometime in July. If the board approves the candidate, then arrangements are made to have that person come for a weekend here at the church, preach, interact with the congregation, and if the congregation then approves that person by a vote of at least 2/3, then we will have selected a person. We are optimistically hoping we can complete that by July and August. If we are able to do that, we might actually have a new pastor in place by October. So, we know what we're going to be doing. And this will be successful to the extent that we have widespread participation from y'all. Any questions? Yes.
You said the survey was passed out, but it's also available online. Where is it online? Because I looked at our website and I couldn't find it.
It will be
in the newsletter? Okay.
It will be in the newsletter. You know, all the way through this, if you have questions or if things don't seem to work, I take calls between the hours of 9 a.m. and 10 p.m. And as I proudly announced at Timbercrest, thanks to my grandchildren, I can now text and I can offer references of persons who have received texts from me. So we want to be very, very open to input from you all. And that's why I read these people's names, not to make them famous, but to make them accessible. So, Helen.
I'm sure other people know the answer to this, but I don't. When the search committee or when the congregation decides we will have a pastor, and you just said they come in maybe August, but they won't be in here until October, does Gwen stay with us past that August, or does she just leave in July? Just wondering.
Well, no, she won't. Gwen is planning to terminate her formal relationship. I hope she stays in touch forever, but her formal relationship with this congregation, I believe, will end July 31st. And we are blessed with strong people within the congregation that we think probably can help us make it until the next person is here. But yes, PMPC is looking at that as an option, and so we are not a one-train operation. We are blessed to have 2 other full-time pastors, and so I'm not anxious about it. I hope the rest of you aren't anxious about it. I think we'll be in good shape. And it may happen more quickly, but chances are the person that we select will be already employed, and we'll need to make the transition responsibly. Well, I'll just give a short testimonial. This group of people on the committee are amazingly responsible. We've only begun our work, but we had to push really hard to get all of these survey documents in place. And so I asked a lot of people this week, and 100% of them responded with helpful information, as the email process was very heated this week. So if you see them, tell them thanks, in addition to giving them any kinds of other support and information that you can. We're here to listen to you, and people keep telling me that the success of a search process is very much dependent on how much input the committee is able to get from the congregation. So please do fill out the surveys, and I promise that no matter what you tell me, I won't tell you it's a dumb idea. We want to hear from you. Any other questions? All right.
They all want to be on the search committee just to hear more of your wit, Jim, but I guess you could just hang out with Jim. Where's your next engagement? You've been at Timbercrest, you've been here now. Where do we next find you?
Well,
in the narthex.
Yes. Amy Shively is my booking agent. And,
contact Amy, that's right. There we go. Well, Jim, I want to thank you very much for taking on that role to lead us through that search process. The executive board and many others did great work in trying to come up with a reflective group. Maybe it's never perfect, but with the people that had the ability and the time to serve on that search committee, know that all of your voices are wanted, all of your ideas will be heard, and their ears are open, and we will go through this process together over the next several months. Helen, I share with you the wonder and the gloriousness of having Gwen in our midst has been fantastic for our congregation. You will be missed when that time is over, sadly missed, but hopefully we can stay in communion and connection with you in many ways, because it has been, it's just been wonderful to get to know you and to hear you and to be challenged by your words to think each week. So, yes, Helen, I agree with that. Hey, we're on to the staff reports now and updates. We've got a Peace Patch Preschool and then our 3 pastoral staff people. Come on up, Megan.
Hi, I'm Megan Sarber. I'm representing Education Commission, and I just wanted to point out that we have Ashley Bradford here with us today. She is the director of the Peace Patch. So just to put a face with the name, and so her report is in the packet, and I have a small update that she was able to share with me. Enrollment opened on March 1st for this fall. And so the update is that instead of 4 students registered for the 3-year-old class, we are now up to 6. We have a capacity for 10 students in the 3-year-old class. And she has also informed me that the 4-year-old class is now full with 12 students enrolled in that. So good news for our enrollment. I'm not going to read through the rest of her report, but if you have any questions, I can take those. Okay, great, thank you. Oh, yes, Helen, did you have one?
It's just for information. I read there where the librarian, Sarah Morbitzer, goes to the children's department every Thursday of the month. It's the back page. Yeah.
Yes, so she's coming here to Peace Patch from the library. She comes and spends time with the children here.
Yes, now, is that a function of the library and they offer it to groups within the church, not church, but community, or did Ashley or you contact her and I mean, how does that work? Because I think that's wonderful, period. But I just wondered, is it part of the librarian?
I think it's an outreach project of the library. Is that what you're saying, Ashley? Yeah. The library initiated that. Yeah. Any other questions? Great. Thank you.
Yes, all right. Next, we'll bring up Seth. And yes, Helen, I know the public library does a great job in our public schools of going and giving a face so that the students who come for summer reading programs or for library story time, and I'm sure that's comfortable for the young kids to be able to see who they might spend time with at the public library.
Sorry. I, kind of like Lila, I will just obviously take any questions about things I said in my report, but I will just look ahead to a few things that maybe were hinted at in the report as well. One of those related to Sing Me Home as we were finalizing all of the financial stuff and working with Catherine faithfully on some of that. A conversation in the board came up that I thought was worth mentioning to you all because it was a question that came up, and that was just to mention that there were, as part of the festival event, something that might not have been aware, but that there were 2 donations that were made as well as part of the festival through the different sponsorships and funds that came in, and those 2 were $2,000 that were given to the Miami Nation of Indiana. They had a drum group that was there, and that was part of the offerings to give that donation to them, as well as $600 was given to the food pantry here in North Manchester. So anyway, I did want to mention that those were two things there as part of kind of the final report and wrapping up. As we're looking ahead, I just wanted to mention, related to Sing Me Home, that we are looking at doing a sort of a concert of series of events this year seasonally, and looking towards a larger kind of one-day festival in 2025. As I mentioned in the report, those exact dates will be released here soon, but I will share just a couple of updates there, and one is that on September 13th, we're going to be partnering with the Wabash County Diversity Coalition in terms of hosting a Hispanic Heritage Festival here in town. It'll be downtown, kind of where the Second Fridays are. Mackenzie Coulter Kern is working on putting a group together, and Sing Me Home is going to partner in those efforts. So we're looking forward to that date in particular. We're also looking one in the winter, looking at putting an alternative gift fair together with music and some other things together in the winter season. So anyway, there'll be more to come on that, but those are sort of the Sing Me Home related offerings. Also working in partnership with Manchester University students. They're going to be leading worship here on April 14th, and so we look forward to the sharing that they're going to put together, and a talented group. Libby Krebs mentioned that they have many musicians with us that are going to be leading, amongst other things, for us. I think Instruments of Peace is the theme that they're working with. We have a talented group of young people are going to be leading worship on Youth Sunday on May 5th, and recognizing 3 of our graduating seniors. We also have a number of senior hires who are going to be going in June to Portland, Oregon on a FaithX trip, working with an organization called Snowcap that provides food and clothing and advocacy for neighbors in need there in Portland. So looking forward to that as well. We have this new Unsettling Truths book study that Witness is working at, and many were part of the Gaza benefit concert. I will mention that I kind of totaled up as best I could, because obviously the money is running through the GoFundMe, and some of the donors are anonymous, so I don't know whether they're affiliated with our congregation or not. But the ones that I could track by following some of your names in there was around $6,000 raised from this congregation and through the efforts of that concert. And Witness Commission is also looking at some upcoming service project opportunities, so be excited to share those with you as they come. Any questions that you have?
I'm just curious to know what the average attendance in your in the youth Sunday school class is.
Yeah, the average attendance kind of varies. Today there was probably about 12 in there. I would say that around like 6 is pretty average. Yeah. Other questions? Thank you.
All right, thank you, Seth. Next up, Amy, fresh off a wonderful sermon today. Thank you.
I am going to read from the first paragraph of my report, and then I just have a couple extra comments. Beginning with the quote, "What is the knocking at the door in the night? It is somebody wants to do us harm. No, no, it is the 3 strange angels. Admit them, admit them." This quote comes from the poem by D.H. Lawrence, Song of a Man Who Has Come Through, a poem full of awareness of the movement of time and change, and being brave enough to be ready for the unknown divine encounter. We as a congregation don't know what is ahead, but we know one another, and we are led by God, who is always with us. It has been a season of changes, conversations, gratitude, and moving forward. I am grateful to be a part of a pastoral team that reflects, thinks, imagines, and plans together. We also support one another in the specifics of our calls to this congregation. In the coming months, as we live into this liminal space of searching, we will need to be hopeful with each other, truthful with each other, trusting with each other. God is with us, and we may need to take a few more deep breaths than normal. We may need to center and quiet ourselves a minute more than normal, but God is indeed with us together. So referring back to the D.H. Lawrence poem, what may look scary may just be a challenge that grows us deeper as a community. What may seem like a wobbly, unknown element is more likely to be the angels of God knocking on the doors, and we will admit them. It is such a joy to serve as one of your pastors. And there's a lot of you, so please, if I don't just happen to stumble over to your house or to visit you at the hospital, or if you don't have a crisis, know that I am available to you for a pastoral visit, for a light-hearted visit, over coffee, in your home, on a walk. I am nearly always available to you, not so much on Fridays, but sometimes on Fridays, but my loving support is always with you. Are there any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Again, Amy and Seth, thank you for your leadership, for your seeing us through this gap time and filling the gap. Wow, so wonderfully, Gwen. Thank you for being here, and thank you for sharing today.
Good afternoon. We're getting to the end here. The only thing that doesn't change is the reality of change itself. So churches, and this particular church, churches have an energy and a communal sense that is bound. But we live within a broader community, and then that community finds its place within an even broader world. And I am conscious of the fact that these last number of months have been difficult months for people of peace. Because our nation has been funding an assault on Gaza since the last time we had a council meeting. And so this means that significant emotional, spiritual, social energy has been spent living in the midst of an additional layer of grief, an additional kind of grief, a kind of moral injury. And now, not only are we grieving still the loss of what the pandemic caused and did within our community, and the loss that is associated with a time of change within the congregation, but we're also grieving the loss of life on a global scale and our inability to make it stop. This persistent undercurrent of grief takes energy, and it takes a toll. And it is a significant part of life. We feel it. And so with all of this compounded loss and subsequent grief, it's important that we continue to do the work of tending to loss and tending to grief, not suppressing it or ignoring it or avoiding it, but rather acknowledging it, naming it, feeling it, and engaging with it. There's a myriad of ways that we might engage with it. And some of it I see happening within the congregation. And sometimes I think we avoid it. But it would be things like telling the stories that to make meaning. There was some of that going on today, talking about, right after the pandemic when we met for worship outside and what it was for us to gather again. To be willing to then express the emotion, the feelings, to journal, to pray, to make art, to continue engaging in centering spiritual practices, and to tend to that sense of loss in oneself and each other with gentleness, and to find ways to celebrate even in that place where we name what we have been through and we celebrate that we are still here, and that we also name what we are continuing to go through, and that we are still here, present. Your presence here for this meeting is an embodiment of that saying, we are still here. Power to you. Keep it up. That is one thing I wanted to note, just an observation that I have had. The second observation is this. It goes without saying that Manchester Church of the Brethren is well resourced. Not only does the church have 2 skilled and experienced and sensitive pastors in Seth and Amy, and a stellar administrative staff in Kayla, who I heard this morning will be celebrating 5 years here in about 2 weeks. But the resources also run deep in the form of all who make up the congregation. And I'm looking at you and can name you. I mean, I know the work that goes into making a congregation function, and certainly not only just making it function, but enabling it to thrive. You all bring a wealth of experience, knowledge, creativity, and insight. And I do hope that the realization of this embodied abundance in the lives of you who make up Manchester Church of the Brethren can serve as a source of comfort and courage during this sacred time of change. And I would just want to say personally, thank you for your ongoing kindness and good humor. It continues to be an honor to serve among you during this season of change. Do you have any questions? All right.
Gwen, again, thank you so much. Several of us enjoyed last Monday the concert. Anybody there? Something, yeah. The best thing about a wider audience is that things are saved. How many times in our life, if we look back in years of history, have you thought to yourself, oh, I wish I could play that again in my mind, in my memory, or I wish I could share that with someone who wasn't able to be here. And that's the beauty of things recorded and having the church YouTube channel is you can listen to it a second time. You can share it with someone else. You can revisit many of those moments, including the concert, and still find a way to support and to help in that. So this brings us to a time of announcements, of which that was my one big announcement, of recapturing things from the past and mulling those over and thinking about it and reflecting on the past, the present, and dreaming about the future in those wild hopes and dreams, and some not so wild, some very ordinary dreams, some very ordinary things. Are there any questions or announcements from all of you? All right, Tina is going to close this spring council meeting for us. Thank you all for attending. At the close of our prayer, peace.
Let us pray.
God, thank you for being with us as we do the nitty-gritty, sometimes hard work of being a church together. Make your presence among us be strongly felt as we continue to be in community with one another, as we deal with tough issues with an eye for caring for those who are the most vulnerable among us and who have been hurt. Thank you for sending us on our way with your light and love inside us. Amen.